Why, yes. After reading that title and seeing that thumbnail, it does seem like I'm trying to get my channel banned, doesn't it? I'm going to be doing something a little bit different in this video. I'm going to be doing something of a bullet point explanation for why I view BLM and Antifa are not the resistance that they say they are, but they are in fact the very concept that they rigidly say that they oppose. They are the oppressors of society rather than the ones being oppressed. And I would like to heavily emphasize my belief. This is based on observations that I have made in society. This is the belief that I have come to based on that. Your mileage will vary, but this is going to be an explanation for how I came to that. There's four major structures in society I view, and I'm going to be breaking down each one of these. It's corporations, the media, the government, and then what I'm going to call society, but when I say that I mean the average citizenry, the Joe Schmo, the day-to-day person. Those 4 points are, to me, the biggest parts of a society. Each one has very big powers within it, and each one cannot really function without the rest as well. Now, you have the corporate side of things, and if you've been on social media at all, every fucking company has had "we at Brand" messages this week. It's been insane. Not since Pride Month for the last couple of years have I seen something this organized and this blatantly pandering. It is insulting. I talked about it in my last video, but it is just insane how much they all jumped on this. And they jumped on it because in many ways corporations are going to agree with whatever the big accepted norm of society at the moment is to try and pander and seem like they give a shit because they believe that that will give them the most money. We, for as evolved as humans say they are, in many ways we aren't. We have a population of 7 billion plus at this point. But our brains are still programmed to, in sort of a tribal sense, and I don't mean tribal like groups or quarters off like you hear a lot used these days. I mean tribal in the sense of small clusterings. We still view a population of 10,000 as a lot, and that's really all you need to get a corporation to think something. 10,000 people all saying something in unison will get pretty much every corporation to say that that is the norm or that is the opinion that they should have to try and get business. So that is why you see a bunch of corporations just giving some black box white text opinion. We support this while doing jack all. It's because they feel that that is what is expected. That is the big societal thing right now. It's very much a not a self-preservation thing, but a view of getting them the most return on investment, so to speak. You have the media. I don't even need to go into this fucking one. The media has been on BLM and Antifa's side since day one. There's no question about this. I can see videos where there's a fire behind a reporter and they say, nothing's going on here. Don't worry, it's peaceful. A BBC article that came out just yesterday in regards to the UK's BLM protests, 27 police officers injured in largely peaceful protests. Now, to a lot of people, that would seem rather ironic or counterintuitive in the headline, but to the BBC, they are actively trying to present that as something that we should ignore. The fact that police were injured, don't worry about that. This was all peaceful. These were all great people. Nothing happened here. Don't even question it. In their mind, they are defending BLM and Antifa, not showing the hypocrisy of it. I can go on, but you get the idea. The media is absolutely on BLM and Antifa's side. Society, well, people are anti-racism. That's just basically a fact. I would wager a guess at 99.9% of society is against racism. So they already have a good starting point with these protests. Society as a whole is against racism in general. That's just a fact of life at this point. So to some people, that's what this is. This is just anti-racism. And to others, and I'm going to go back to social media again, it's following the clique. Once again, people are tribal by nature. Especially in social media, they tend to group amongst themselves people that have similar ideas, similar opinions, similar thoughts. Humans are shallow. They love to hear their own thoughts regurgitated from other mouths. So we tend to cluster in groups that have the same thought process or the same ideas, the same mentalities. So when enough of that group says or supports something, the entirety of the group does, in some ways for fear of being ostracized from the group, but largely just to follow suit. It has been confirmed by a good enough portion of the group that this is the opinion that should be had, ergo the rest of the group follows suit. Again, we are very shallow, simple for as evolved and intelligent as we say we are. And then you have government. Again, this one is rather self-evident. For all the shit you can say about how Trump is completely and totally opposed to these protests, how he throws a temper tantrum and hissy fit on Twitter about it, for how much he despises them, he can't do shit unless he declares martial law, which he hasn't, by the way. For as much as I have seen on social media that Trump has declared martial law, he hasn't. Just because you say it doesn't make it true. He is required by law to wait for city and or state officials to allow in National Guards, which every single one of them has opposed. They are not letting anybody in on this. City governments are caving to demands. They are. The Minneapolis mayor did a fucking walk of shame. There are some cities where they're quite literally bowing down, completely on their stomachs, hands behind back, begging for mercy. In many cities where they've arrested people, New York being the biggest one, they are releasing the protesters. They are not going to be charging them at all. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that the mayor's daughter was one of the people arrested. No conflict of interest there. I can go on, but I believe you get the point. The governments are largely on their side and doing everything they can to appease these people. Now, all four of those points, corporate, media, society, and government, they show that BLM and Antifa are, their opinion is the mainstream. Now I can hear what you're gonna say. You said that they were the oppressors, not the mainstream. That's the point you're trying to prove. And yes, in order to get to the oppressor part, I first had to display how the opinion that these groups are presenting is the mainstream. They aren't the resistance. That's the big part of that. But just because you're the mainstream doesn't make you the oppressor. What they have been doing shows that they are the oppressor. From a corporate level, if you don't say anything, then you support it. If you don't say that BLM is the best thing ever, obviously you support racism. If you don't give money to BLM, you support racism. Corporations have been bending over backwards to either give them money or to have people donate to the corporation so the corporation can then donate to them. So many companies have been shat on for not supporting BLM fast enough. And that is the other part of this. A lot of corporations will do and say the same thing because they're afraid the competition will either do it first or they will lose a lot of money to their competition if they don't do it. And BLM and Antifa are, for being communists, which they openly say they are, that's not me pulling that one out of my ass. Listen to any rally they have. They very much know how to manipulate capitalism very, very well. So many companies are just deadly afraid at this point. Target, one of the first and largest companies that was hit by the riots, is not pressing charges against anyone that robbed their stores and has said that they are perfectly fine with the fact that their stores were robbed. Oh, we are happy that you did that. They said that as a form of appeasement to try and stop the bleeding. They are hoping that if they bow down, that will get them to stop. If that's not a fucking form of terrorism, I don't know what is. Media. CNN's headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, was raided. Protesters have openly been beating the shit out of media figures in an attempt to get them to submit. Again, I don't know what else I need to say. They have the meat. If it weren't for the fact that the media was already on their side, they are beating the media into submission so that they absolutely do not fall out of line. Society. Once again, back to social media. If you do not express that you openly support BLM, you are branded as a racist. It's not even that you are opposing BLM. If you do not openly show that you are supporting them, you are racist. What's going on now is an idea that silence is consent, or very recently, as was said in a protest, silence is violence. They have now twisted it so that if you do not say you're with us, you are against us. And because they have made it so that the mainstream idea is that BLM is anti-racism, if you are against BLM, you must be for racism. Many people have been fired from their jobs. I have seen so many horror stories day after day of people losing their livelihoods because they weren't openly supporting BLM. That's fucking disturbing, isn't it? That corporations are looking into people's personal social media accounts that are not attached to the company in any way, shape, or form, and they are firing them for not expressing an opinion that is considered the correct one right now. Not even going against the correct opinion, but just not expressing it. Right now, we are seeing a large movement that if you are still taking selfies, if you are taking food pictures, if you are not talking about BLM in general, then you are opposed to them. That is scary. That they have enough power and ability to do that. But that's what's happening right now, and we are seeing the consequences of it. And then government. Once again, what more do I need to say? If you've looked at the news at all lately, you know that they are forcing the government to do what they want. They have made mayors and governors effectively bow down to them. Again, the mayor of Minneapolis was in a walk of fucking shame as a form of appeasement. And that's just one example. The mayor of Seattle basically has given up a portion of the city to Antifa, who are, in effect, performing an armed insurrection. I've never seen anything like this. I don't know how you can look at all that and not see that these people are the oppressors. From the corporate to the government to the media to the societal, from all angles, they are the ones in control here. It started out as a good mental twist tactic to get people in their support. BLM is anti-racism. That's the message that they have been building for years. And we finally hit a point where all it took was enough manpower to make that the standard. Once again, we humans are very tribal. Get enough people to say something, and suddenly it becomes the accepted norm. All you really need is probably 100,000 people to do something, to say something in unison. Congratulations. You've convinced everyone that matters anyway that is the accepted. You've convinced the government that that's the accepted. They will follow along with that in hopes of getting votes. You've convinced the corporations of that. They will follow along with that in hopes of getting business. You've convinced society of that because, well, the people that you follow or the people that you talk to, at least one of them will probably be in that group or have that opinion. And you convince the media because they want your viewership, they want your clicks, they want your whatever. So you start with something that society as a whole would largely agree with. Racism is bad. You get enough people behind it. Then your organization, your group, your whatever, has control. What changes it from being the mainstream to the oppressor is how you exercise that control. And time and again, when presented with the opportunity, BLM and Antifa have shown that they are absolutely oppressors in this. I'm really hoping that this turns out to be just one of the events that you see every time these protests start up. That usually it's a couple weeks. This one's lasted a bit longer, so I'm going to say 3-4 weeks. After that, it will just taper out into nothing, and then we will go back to largely normal. Policies will have been changed. some actions will have been taken, yada yada, but generally we as a people will go back to normal. Once again, thinking racism is bad, but not actively punishing people for not saying that 24/7. That's what I mean by normal. I really hope that, because if this continues as is, this is going to end very badly. Given any level of power, BLM and Antifa have shown that they will abuse the fuck out of it. Continue to give them power. I shudder to think what will happen. It actually does scare the crap out of me. On that cheerful note, this has been Math Machine, hopefully demonstrating why I view that the resistance are actually the oppressors. And if you have a differing opinion, I would like to hear how you believe that, or you came to that. I would love to hear your explanations, because I would like to think that I have shown enough and explained in detail enough why I view the way I do. Peace out.